those experiences that just really taught me that life is very short, that, we have a tremendous burden and responsibility to take care of those around us, especially our family and close friends. But more importantly, like, when moments like that come into fruition and into a vision, that, those are leadership moments. You got to step up, and you got to step up not only for you, but you got to step up for your family.
Welcome to Career Cheat Code. In this podcast, you'll hear how everyday people impact the world through their careers. Learn about their journey, career hacks, and obstacles along the way. Whether you're already having the impact you want or are searching for it, this is the podcast for you.
Dario, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super dope. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you
making time.
Of course, man. Thanks for taking the time. Let's just jump right in there. Let's tell the world what it is you do for a living.
Sounds good. So I'm a vice president of strategic development for the Hispanic Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C. It's a national Latino nonprofit, one of the top in the country, started in 1986 by the Reagan White House to commemorate what's now known as Hispanic Heritage Month. So September 15 to October 15. We do the Hispanic Heritage Awards at the Kennedy Center, which are the most prestigious awards by Latinos for Latinos across the country. Anyone from Celia Cruz to Justice Sotomayor to Bad Bunny have been honored on the Kennedy Center stage, and it's on PBS during Hispanic Heritage Month. We also do computer coding with Google. This year alone, we're teaching over 100,000 Latino kids how to code across the country, and also not only introducing them to coding already, but also providing an opportunity for them to have internships or full-time opportunities at companies like Google and TikTok and the Instagrams of the world. We have a big partnership with TikTok, where we have a podcast series that we talk about a lot of different important issues within our community, such as, mental health, financial literacy, and other topics in our community that we don't really discuss freely. So we wanted to kind of create that space for folks in our community, especially young Latino professionals, to have that opportunity to do that.
That's all.
So we do a lot of really cool stuff, man. So that's kind of like my, that's my day job. I also do consulting on the side, and then work with, different entities, Major League Baseball players and folks like that.
Got it. So tell me what happens when you walk in on Monday. What is your actual job duty? What are you tasked with doing?
Just a lot of Zoom calls. A lot of, following up with donors, making sure that our deliverables are being set, or that deliverables are being set and met as it pertains to the sponsorship agreements. And then just really thinking about different innovative ideas of how we can continue to move the needle forward within, liderazgo, as I like to call it, leadership in our community, not only here in Washington, D.C., obviously, but all across the country. So, for example, with the computer coding work that we're doing, we're actually looking at expanding it into Honduras. We've done stuff in Mexico. So we're teaching kids how to code in both English and Spanish, which is, we feel HHF is a game changer.
Absolutely.
Not only bringing kids to just teaching them what computer coding is, but letting them know that, hey, this is actually an opportunity to make six figures healthy, and an opportunity to take care of your family and potentially create generational wealth moving forward.
I love that. So really your role is to make sure that HHF continues to receive the funding it needs to be innovative, to think about these programmings. And as you have the pulse on the community, to think about, well, what else does our community need throughout not just the country, but the world? And how do we fill those gaps through some of the partners that we get?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. So with TikTok has provided us $4 million in the last 3 years. They gave us $1 million during COVID, which allowed us not to lay off any of our staff, either here in DC or Los Angeles. But more importantly, it gave us an avenue. So we're their biggest Latino partner across the country. Obviously, they're going through their challenges on Capitol Hill, so we're assisting them with that. But more importantly, we're also assisting, TikTok has 170 million subscribers just in the United States alone, over 7 million small businesses. Many of them are Latino. So we're working with a lot of these Latino businesses that essentially survived during COVID because of the app. And we're giving out of that money every year. We give $150,000 in $5,000 to $10,000 increments that small businesses can utilize. But more importantly, we're also giving hundreds of thousands of dollars in credits, TikTok credits, and we're actually teaching people how to utilize the app so that they can go on. And, when you had a business that had a lot of foot traffic, and obviously things have changed with COVID because a lot of people are working from home like myself. So now we're allowing these businesses to be innovative. So, and we're seeing that a lot of these Latino businesses are growing 3-4x just on the app alone in terms of their monthly revenue. That's been just kind of like something that excites us as a foundation, because we're tapping into innovative and different more opportunities for small businesses. We're giving out $125,000 through the Kroger Foundation for companies that are into innovative ways of making healthier foods, for example. If you go on our website, hispanicheritage.org, you can find that information for that specific grant opportunity. So nosotros estamos en todo, como decimos, estamos en todo menos la misa. We're kind of in everything. But we do a lot of really cool stuff. We're very innovative. Our president and CEO, Antonio Tigueriño, been at the helm for over 20 years, and he's somebody who really thinks very innovatively and always says, hey, we want to do the work. Let the community lead us. We don't lead the community. Let folks within our community allow us the opportunity to say, hey, this is what's needed, and let's get the work done.
I love it.
So I wake up every day just blessed, man, and dándole la gracia a Dios that I get to continue to affect my community in a positive light. Prior to this, I spent 7 years at the Harvard Kennedy School. We raised over $40 million. So Latino students and African-American students, $20 million for Latino students. They can attend Harvard for free. So if anybody out there is looking for a master's degree, you get into Harvard and you're Latino or want to serve the Latino community, there's a tremendous opportunity to receive tuition-free fellowship and a $10,000 stipend, no questions asked, for housing. And that's called the Harvard Latino Leadership Fellowship. So if you go the Harvard Kennedy School Center for Public Leadership, you'll be able to find information to apply. We did the same thing. We replicated that same model. Mind you, we started this from scratch, replicated the same model for African American students under Sheila Johnson, one of the owners of the Washington Wizards here in DC and the Mystics. We were able to raise $20 million with her and kind of her connections, and we were able to do the same thing for African American students. So if you're an African American student, you want to serve the African American community, you can obtain your master's at Harvard, no questions asked. As long as you get in with the tuition free stipend, and also with the opportunity to have a $10,000 stipend for housing. So that's kind of the work that I've done essentially since college and obtaining my master's in business here at the Georgetown Ghana School of Business.
Got it. So let's take it back a little bit. Is this what you always wanted to do for a living?
That's a good question. So I've always wanted to be like FBI agent or CIA or Secret Service. Una pistola. You know how Dominic, growing up in the hood, people with guns were always like the people you looked up to, unfortunately, or fortunately in some ways. So for me, man, I've always wanted to kind of go in that field. I graduated college, University of Massachusetts, Amherst. When I was in college, I actually did an internship with America's Most Wanted, the TV show on Fox. And I was running the 1-800-CRIME TV hotline. So I was actually taking tips on real life fugitives. And we were very successful at that in terms of like weight, height, but also like mannerisms where, these folks, what kind of drinks or, what they were smoking at the time. We passed those tips on to law enforcement, FBI, DEA, CIA, and then we were successful in capturing fugitives. Moved to Washington, D.C. after 2 years of living here, born and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts, north of Boston, and just really because of internships, had an opportunity to really fall in love with the city that today, continues to be my home. But, did some consulting work. And then during that time, a recruiter kind of reached out. They were like, hey, Harvard is looking to start a Latino initiative. They've never done this before. They have seed funding. A gentleman named Walter Ulloa, CEO and chairman of VentureVision, rest in peace. He passed away last year of a heart attack. But Walter really had this vision of, if we're going to be in the right rooms, we got to create the spaces so that we can actually get into these rooms. So that being said, Harvard had some seed funding. My boss, David Gergen, you've probably seen him on CNN. He's a political commentator at the time, was running the Center for Public Leadership. And, they recruited me. They said, hey, we'd love to have a conversation with you. And since, from there, it was kind of like, I flew to Cambridge, and I was like, this would be kind of cool to kind of go back home for a little bit. They shared with me the vision of what they were trying to do. And I said, hey, I think this is a great opportunity. I kind of thought of my background. So I attended Lawrence Public High School my entire life. My senior year at Lawrence High School, 50% of the kids that I graduated with didn't graduate. Many had kids, gang violence. Lawrence at the time had a plethora of issues like carjackings and whatnot and things of that nature. And so I had an English teacher, Richard Gorham, who still is the head wrestling coach at Phillips Academy Andover, one of the top boarding schools in the world. And he was like, D, I see more opportunity than I think you see in yourself. I think you should apply for a fifth year of high school, a postgraduate year. It's called PG year at Andover. And I believe in you so much that I'm going to pay the $65 application fee, and I'm going to drive you to and from the interview because I know you guys don't have a car. I grew up in housing projects since I was 5 years old, Beacon Projects in South Lawrence, Massachusetts. So for me, this was an opportunity. I went. man, I'll tell you, I've never seen so much free food, green grass in my life. They mowed it like 4 times a day. And I was fortunate, man. I applied. I was accepted. And that year at Andover kicked my ass, I'll tell you, because I went from 30 minutes of high school of homework to like 4 or 5 hours a night of homework. But it really molded me into kind of like the person and the work that I do today. And fast forward, when I had this interview at the Harvard Kennedy School, I thought of Dario in public schools versus Dario, who had an opportunity to like really excel that one year where his SAT scores went up 200, 250, 300 points. And now has a master's from Georgetown Business School. Wow. So for me, it was kind of like that opportunity, and gracias a Dios, we went along with it, and then we're doing the work that we're currently doing. But all of that is because somebody took a chance on me. If it wasn't for Richard Gorham, I mean, who knows where I would be,
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about what do you do when you transfer high schools for a fifth year, right? Like, were you going for sports? Were you going for something? What in your mind, and how do you go home to your parents and say, hey, I know I could theoretically graduate this year, but I'm going to go ahead and do it in one more year? What made it make sense for you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it was an opportunity I just didn't feel that I was ready for college. Right? I felt like first of 7 in my family go to college. So I was just like, man, if I take this year really seriously and I work on my vocabulary, I work on my statistics, my math, maybe I'll have more success in college. And then also realistically, I mean, I went from one of the worst high schools in the state of Massachusetts at the time to one of the best boarding schools in the world. So I was like, man, if I take this opportunity, maybe other colleges and universities are going to present themselves, and I could have more choices per se. And what's crazy is that that happened, but for me it was more like I went in there listening to Tupac and Biggie, because that's back in the day, that's how it was. And these cats from India and China, Toto País that I had never even heard of, listening to the Doors, Prince, and music like that. So like for me, that was an opportunity to kind of like and embrace myself in these different cultures and these different like music and everything. So it was tough. So I was the captain of the football team at Lawrence High School. I was a 3-year varsity starter. And part of it, I went to Andover to play football. What was crazy is that I tore my knee up the week before a preseason, the week before against Cushion Academy, the week before a game. So I was not only doing 4 or 5 hours of homework a night, but I was also doing like 2 or 3 hours of rehab on my knee. So for me, that was it was a crazy year, because I was really just focusing on just becoming better. And I remember my teachers, they were like, yo, you're good enough to be here. And I think that for me was always been a lesson of teaching kids. Sometimes we tell ourselves, coño, we're in this room and we got all these like, perfumero, come mierda, people like that. And you're kind of like, but you got to tell yourself like, yo, you've worked hard enough in your life that you deserve this seat, like you're here because you're here working on behalf of your community.
Got it.
So I think those were lessons that I learned really when they were tough lessons, but I'm just glad that, that we went through it. And I enjoy moments like, I'm a huge baseball fan. So like sometimes I get to work and help out like baseball players that become my friends, and I get to go to these games, which is pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 20 out of 30 ballparks deep. It's a lifelong goal. So I'm trying to get those 10 parks. I got it aligned right now on the schedule. I think I'm gonna be able to do that this season.
That's awesome. I love that for you, and I know you're a huge baseball fan, so that's a big feat. Talk to me about senior year in this new high school, your 5th year. At that point, did you feel like FBI, DEA, one of those law enforcement things was the move? And what actually happened when you were applying to school? Like, what'd you end up doing in Boston, and what'd you end up getting? What'd you end up majoring in UMass?
So yeah. So after Andover, I had got partial scholarship to attend University of Massachusetts Amherst. I studied political science and Spanish while I was in Amherst, while I was at UMass, and it was great, man. It was I also went out for the football team that first year, so I was a walk-on. We actually won that year the Division I AA National Championship. So that was a really cool opportunity. But I just felt like football wasn't really it wasn't going to get me to that next level. So I just really, after my freshman year, I really focused on academics. I think for me, it was always, it's always like chasing your passion, right? Following your passion. Like, what is it that makes you happy? And I think the advice that I have for a lot of young folks now is try to find that. You know what I'm saying? Like, el dinero, everything else follows after that, but you gotta pick a career and a lane that you're going to be super happy in. For me, it's always been like, I've always wanted to work and be a part of the Latino community. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I grew up. That's like to this day, como plátano, yuca, lo que sea, rice and beans. But I have a very unique opportunity because of the work that we do to really bring these innovative kind of ideas and programs to folks within our community. I think for me, when I look back at kind of like the work that I do, it's always about mentorship, right? Like I have this saying, Vladdy, that when you take the elevator up in life, you should always send it back down for others to follow. So the work that we did at Harvard was something that I'm going to cherish forever, because a lot of those kids, talking about kids from CUNY, Loyola Marymount University, McAllen, Texas, Chicago. You're talking about kids that because of a summer program at Harvard, they were now able to think outside of the box and be like, yo, I belong here. I can apply. A lot of those kids ended up applying. A lot of those kids ended up getting masters from Harvard and Whartons and the Stanfords of the world. But it was because we gave them an opportunity. I think sometimes within our Latino community and in other communities, we always self-select ourselves out. We're like, yo no voy a aplicar, ¿pa qué? Pues no me van a coger. And I think that's something that we really have to change. We got to change that mindset. I had a young man. He was one of my mentees at the time, like consider him a little brother, Alex Diaz. He now runs AI for Google. And Alex was our mentee for 4 years for all 4 years when he was at Harvard College. Dominican Cuban kid from New Jersey. Alex ended up being and he was the same thing. He was like, yo, there's this thing called the Rhodes Scholar. I don't know if I'm good enough, but I was like, bro, the worst thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna say no. Make a long story short, Alex was the only Latino in the world, the only Latino that year that was a Rhodes Scholar, and he was actually the only Latino who's a Rhodes Scholar and a Marshall Scholar, which, if for those not in academia, those are the two most prestigious awards you can get as a college student. And now he's running AI for Google, and they're giving out money utilizing AI for public good under Google.org, so that when there's a tornado, there's an earthquake, like there was just an earthquake in I believe in Asia, they're giving out money for families on the ground so that they could actually buy food and buy whatever things, necessities that they need. So I just bring Alex up as an example because, our community has so many bright lights, man. Our community has so many kids just like Alex and others that all they need is an opportunity. Like, our folks is hungry for that opportunity, So that, I think for me, that's what keeps me going. And really, it just allows me the opportunity to be like, what difference can we make today?
Talk to me about the moment that you decided that you needed a grad school degree. Why did you do that? And do you feel like you got the most out of that?
That's a good question. So I think for me at the time, I graduated from Georgetown in 2006. So it's been some time. I was at a consulting gig. It was kind of consulting and sales. And then I found out that they help you pay for grad school. So I was like, oh, well, vamos a chequear esto. And I think for me at the time was like, all right, can I find a program? And I was able to find a part-time program where I was still working full-time, but then also going to Georgetown part-time. So it was basically, I did the program. It was like a 2-year program that we, did part-time. So I think for me, it was the opportunity to take advantage of, como te digo, they were trying to give me money to go to grad school. I was like, I got to take this. But then also, I think evolution. I think every day you got to think about, like, never get stagnant, never get because you got a job and you're making good money or esto y el otro. I think sometimes we're afraid of change and what that potentially could look like. So I think internally, I was just always trying to push myself. Now, when I look at the grad school experience, I think that, everybody, you're going to write 10, 20-page papers and you're going to do these presentations. That's all that comes with the territory, right? But I think more importantly, what you find in grad school is that you're able to share these different ideas, these kind of like innovative thoughts, como quien dice, either regular or over a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. And you start thinking about, wow, that I never thought of consulting, or I never thought of, working in the nonprofit space, that could actually be a career type of move. And so I just think about, things like that. Por ejemplo, just to, I think people should always keep their minds open to opportunities out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, like I said, we don't take risks. It's so hard just to make it out the hood. That once you make it out the hood, you're like, coño, pero yo estoy bien. I'm gonna be just chilling. Yo voy a estar aquí tranquilo. Nadie me va a joder. But you got to innovate. You got to know that there's levels to this. Like, we're now playing chess. You know what I'm saying? It was checkers back then, but now everybody's playing chess. So you always got to like try to think ahead.
Absolutely. So tell me about that, because, you know, I think one of the purposes of this platform is to show that you can be very mission driven, very impact driven, and not have to sacrifice making good money for that. I grew up with this mindset of, if you're going to do good, you probably are going to be broke. And if you're going to be rich, you probably are going to do evil things in the world. And I'm like, none of that is true. Like, you know, like I think the media just kind of tells us that the super rich person is the mean person and the super poor person is doing really impacted stuff. And it's like, there's a gray area in between that does a lot of work. So how much money can folks make in this nonprofit space doing things like fundraising or the work they do?
Oh, I mean, you can make a healthy six figures, you know, you can make very, very good money. And then depending on how you're structured, your contract, you know, you could have a contract that's base and then incentive wise. So, you know, always, you know, think about that in terms of whatever you're bringing in, you know, if there's incentive based to that. But look, I mean, I think you could definitely eat well 3 times a day. And your card's going to go through. For me, the definition of like being cool is, coloco, uno puede salir, comprar una ropita, una comida, and you know your card's going to go through, regardless of how much money you got in your account. Because the worst was like growing up and, you know, your card didn't go through or you didn't have enough money for McDonald's. And then now you're the big joke on the block. You know what I mean? So I think the secret, Radhy, is, again, just finding your niche. Like I've met so many Latinos and especially like Dominicans as well. In the NFL, for example, they're like, yo, I combined my love for sports and I combined my love for writing as a reporter. And now I'm covering the NFL. I'm covering Major League Baseball. I'm covering, you know, other boxing or lo que sea. So I think it's like, all right, you got to merge what you know you're good at and what you love. And I think not to like name drop because I'm not really like that, but like one of the biggest advice that somebody gave me was Justice Sotomayor, and she was like, she's always been just a great advocate for the Harvard work that we did, and obviously the work that we do at HHF. And she's you know a mentor to me. She's like, you know, like that's people's. And one of the things she's always told me, she was just like, yo, you know what you're good at, and you know what you're not good at. Work on what you're good at and make it better. But work on what you're not good at and just, get it to the level que tú estás bien. Because you're not going to get it una cosa de otro nivel. But get it to the level that you're going to be okay. So, for example, if you don't like, if you're shy and you don't like speaking in front of a group, that's okay. But get it to a point where you're at least comfortable enough that if you have to do it, that you're going to be okay with it. And I think for me, that was some of the best advice I've ever received, to be honest. But then also like identify the talent that you have. Like for me, it's always been networking. It's always been fundraising. It's always been bringing good people together. And so that's something that every day I try to really strive and make better.
Okay, so tell me a couple of more of those like cheat codes, things that like you have learned throughout your career that if you knew when you were 20, you would be so much further ahead, or that you just wish you knew a little earlier. And as you think about and one of the things you mentioned was around in your specific field, right? Being able to like negotiate and the value of that. Can you speak a little bit more also about things that you can negotiate when you talk about incentives? Like what would that look like for someone like yourself as a hypothetical? You don't have to give us like specifics, right? But like what kind of things can someone negotiate?
I think, I mean, look, you negotiate the, amount of time you're able to take off. You negotiate the, if you could work from home or not, or how many times you have to be in the office. That's like super important, especially with people who single parents, for example. And I mean, I don't have no kids, but coño, the amount of money that it takes for childcare, you need like a second job. Or a second mortgage, because these prices is crazy. So I think being able to negotiate and being self-aware of those things out there. And if you have a family or you don't have a family or you want to have a family, like these are things that you really got to think about. I think write down like a cheat code, write down, okay, what are the 5 things that are going to make me happy in this job, with or without this job? And then kind of go from there. I think, just treating everybody with respect, just treating everybody with the utmost amor, you know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes, I'll give you a perfect example. One of the years we were at Harvard, Felipe Calderón, one of the ex-presidents of Mexico, was actually a fellow there, right? The kids and I, during that summer, ran into him randomly on campus. And everybody was running to him. Oh my God, Presidente, because some of the kids were Mexican. So I noticed that his wife was kind of like, they left her by herself. So I made it a point. Oh, doña, ¿cómo está usted? ¿Todo bien? ¿Necesita algo? Pum, pum. Muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad. Pum, pum, pum. And let me tell you something. Because of that, and because like I made her feel like tranquila, he ended up actually giving us an hour and 1 hour session, private session with the students, where he talked about very frankly and in closed doors the decisions that he had to make as president when it pertained to the cartel, and why thousands of people had to die as a result of those wars. But that would have never happened had I not extended a hand to his wife. And the reason that I say that is because sometimes we see like famous people, we see very influential people, and everybody goes to them, right? This is a cheat code. Everybody goes to them, like, oh, boom, 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 oh my God, yo, can I get your autograph? Oh, hey, but yo, nobody's really talking to the assistant or the right hand person that's with them, or the cook or el barbero. Dominican, si un dominicano, un pelotero, siempre va a estar con barbero. I bring that up is because it's like always, like I said, always treat people the same with respect, but always be mindful that yo, preséntate al grupo completo. No di que a la persona que supuestamente importante. ¿Entiendes? And I think that lesson, that's gone, for me, it's gone a very long way.
Love that.
And I think that sometimes, the only reason I bring that up is I think that sometimes, not only in our community, I'll be honest, but in other communities, hay gente que son, I hate the word, pero come mierda, right? Oh, loco, baby. And sometimes you can't be like that when you're just around folks in general. You got to let people know that, yo, you're genuine, that your work matters, and that you mean well, because the energy, especially as like Latino men and Latinas as well, our energy really fluctuates when we meet people. Like, people feel that energy. And I think that's one of the advantages that we have as, being a Latina or a Latino in this country, and really navigating these prisms and these walls, right? And these boardrooms, and it's okay to switch it up. It's okay to, you've got to wear a suit and tie. Después que tú salgas de eso, let me hit up a basketball game and put on a regular T-shirt que diga Dominican o una vaina así. But it's okay to be yourself. Like, code switching, that's fine, as long as you're doing it at your own accord. If that makes sense. So I think that's a cheat. I think that's another cheat. Let me see. I think another cheat would be, don't be that person that's always asking for something. You feel me? Always try to be a resource. So, for example, like tonight, I have tickets to the Lakers are playing the Wizards, right? I'm a Celtics fan. I'm from Boston, right? Outside of Boston. Cualquier cosa, I'll be cool to go see LeBron. Pero, okay, vamos a decir que yo no voy. Okay, si tengo 2 taquillas, se lo voy a dar a alguien que va a agradecer esa oportunidad. Not because I'm looking for something. Okay, yo le quiero quitar un favor después, but it's the right thing to do, because people are always going to remember that. People are always going to remember when, you hit them up on Facebook or Instagram and wish them a happy birthday. I do that every single day when I wake up. That's like one of the first things that I do. Why is that? Because you want people to always remember, he always said, I don't really talk to him, or I don't see him that often, but he's always sending a happy birthday. And that means a lot. Like, those those little details mean so much. And then, when you're sending a thank you note, most people don't even do handwritten thank you notes anymore. Like, that's another thing. If you go on a job interview, you can send an email. That's easy. But send a little thank you note. Hey, thank you so much for your time. Put it in the mail. Make sure it gets in there the next day or two, because that person's always going to think about that. Listen, the people who take care of the small details are the people that become the most successful. And it's not because they're doing it, como te digo, on some like calculated, like mean-spirited way. It's because that's part of their personality. So like when people, when they come to DC, like you've come to DC, when people come to DC, I'm gonna hit them up. That's a cool cat. Let me go have a drink with him, or let me, not because like, okay, uno va a hablar de negocio. No, okay, uno va just to chill and to catch up. Y cuando uno viene a ver, a lot of opportunities come out that way. Just chit-chatting, just being real cool, again, and just being very, very genuine.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've been, and I appreciate you sharing those cheat codes, right? I think that's really what the show is about. One of the things that I've been mindful of asking too is, how did we get connected?
So we got connected at the Hispanic Heritage Awards through Basilia Angel,
who was another guest on this show.
On the show, yep, consultant here in DC. And she was like, yo, you got to meet Radhy Miranda, Dominicano. You know how it is, no? Loco, que lo que, como tú estás? Boom, boom, boom. And then obviously that's our big event of the year. And then obviously you guys came to the after party where we connected some more. And I was just like, and we just, we stayed in touch.
Absolutely.
And obviously, with you and the work that you're doing at the Rockefeller Foundation, felicidades on that. That's super, super dope. And it's all about moving our culture forward.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think once it's one of those things that like the moment you find out there's a Dominican in something or Latino in something or somebody that's
Yeah,
mission
yeah.
aligned with you in something, you like immediately lock eyes and just dap up and it's like, got you. But all right, we're gonna stay connected. And like that's been
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, of
reoccurring
course.
theme when you just find people that are like just genuinely good hearted and are trying to like just do good things in the world. And like you said, right, like not folks that every time they hit you up is trying to ask for something. Like nobody wants that type of person in their life. You don't want that person as your
Yeah,
neighbor. You don't want that person as your friend or colleague.
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
person that only comes to you when they need something is not a person you want. But like you and I would just be like, all right, let's go hang out. Let's go chill. Let's go
yeah, yeah.
whatever. When I'm in town, when you're in
Absolutely.
town, and we'll figure it out. And I think that's super important. And it's a very underrated cheat code, as you said.
Yeah. And people, listen, people are going to remember. Somebody told me this one time. People are not always going to remember what you say, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. So as long as you know, always like keep it like positive vibe, I think that's just super, super important. And I just think that that's something that we always have to keep in mind. And like sometimes, you know, like I do suites on the side, right? Where I bring a lot of cool people together for different events, different concerts. You know, sometimes I mean, me queda one or two, you know, ticket. Like I have a Bad Bunny suite on Tuesday. I might have an extra seat or two, you know, just randomly because either they didn't sell or somebody canceled on me last minute. So I'm always very mindful. I'm like, coño, who can I invite que va a apreciar esta oportunidad? Because yo, Bad Bunny is expensive, and all these other concerts, ya tú sabes, it's like an arm and a leg. And again, it's not uno invita a alguien, no di que porque uno está buscando algo. No, but if you want somebody to enjoy that opportunity, and somebody that's always going to be like, yo, thank you for thinking of me. You know,
Absolutely.
so that's always something in you know, and even if they can't make the event, whether it's a basketball game or concert or whatever, people are always going to appreciate that you looked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I'm going to ask about your consulting in a few, but I do want to before then learn what is your favorite part of your role?
My favorite part of my role is man, just being able to give these incredible experiences to this next generation. You know, we just did an event last week, our National Youth Awards at Southwest headquarters in Dallas, Texas, where we honored 10 of the top Latino high school students in the country. Mind you, out of 30,000 applicants, we honored 300. Out of those 300, we honored 10 last week in Dallas. And just being able to like, some of these kids, it's their first time on an airplane. Southwest, you know, put them on an airplane. You know, we got them and their families in a hotel. But more importantly, like they're getting honored for the work that they've done already, and for all the potential that they have moving forward. You know what I'm saying? So I think for me, that's always been like just a highlight. Also, when, you know, we honor national high school students, we're the only Latino nonprofit that does it at the Super Bowl. So I've been a 6 or 7 of the last 8 Super Bowls attending, but also on behalf of the foundation, which I'm very grateful for because of our partnership. So for me, being able, like this year, you know, the NFL invited our kids on the red carpet for the NFL honors, and they got on TV, like, you know, like just seeing those kids shine like that eso me da una cosa bien bonita en el corazón, and it reminds you that that's why we do the work that we do. Because now those kids, man, those kids are gonna go out and they're gonna be like, yo, like I'm here, I deserve to be here. That door is open because I'm here. You know what I'm saying? And I think that sometimes we don't celebrate our victories enough, you know. And then for everybody that's watching, like you gotta like make it a point that like something good happens in your life, coño, celébralo. And I'm not saying like you gotta go de que tu Punta Cana, de que pa pasarte una semana. No, coño, yeah, like, you know, take your mom or your dad out to, or your brothers and sisters out to like a meal. It could be like a regular restaurant, but enjoy that time and be celebrated. You know, because I think for a lot of us, we come from these environments, these tough environments that we were lucky to make it out, right? And like you look at people now that we grew up with, man, they look like fucking train tracks ran through them because it's crazy. But I think it's I think we really have to remind ourselves that yeah, we made it, but you know, you don't have to live for the rest of your life with survivor's guilt. Like it's okay. Like people have made decisions that have affected them, either good or bad. That's not your problem. You know, you got to just continue to you know, seguir pa'lante, and continue to do good work.
I love that. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you also talking about kind of appreciating those highlights. In that same vein, are there any lowlights that you have had to overcome or face with that, you know, because it's easy to look at you and your life and your career trajectory and be like, man, he got it all figured out. he probably had it like sweet all over his whole life. Like that may not necessarily be the case, right? Is there anything that you feel like, man, you know, there was a time when I had to figure some stuff out?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I think COVID really taught us a lot, right? It really like, made you feel like, yo, you had to really work for a lot of things. Like, I think for me, the last 3 years have just been tough. I mean, I lost one brother to an aneurysm. I lost another brother to un infarto. I lost one of my best friends to a fentanyl overdose. And all of this shit happened within like literally like 2 or 3 years. And for me, it was just really, really tough to deal with so much loss. And quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, man. It was the first time that I did therapy, because I was telling myself like, yo, this doesn't feel right. And I think that, and I talked to some friends, and they were like, yo, you should probably, go see a therapist. And yo, I saw a therapist for like 3 years, 3 years. And it was the best decision that I've ever done, because I was dealing with a lot of trauma and a lot of loss, and then sometimes, yo, I'll be honest on this podcast, sometimes, as the one in the family that kind of made it out or whatever, coño, a lot of the responsibility falls on you. Loco, uno gastando 15 tabla for, to bury your brother, that's some real shit. And if we didn't have it, then it's like, okay, what do we do? Do we do a
GoFundMe or something?
A GoFundMe. And I'm not like, yo, I respect everybody, whoever's done that and stuff, but that just wasn't my style. And I was just like, nah, we ain't doing that. So I think those experiences that just really taught me that life is very short, that, we have a tremendous burden and responsibility to take care of those around us, especially our family and close friends. But more importantly, like, yo, when moments like that come into fruition and into a vision, that, yo, those are leadership moments. You got to step up, and you got to step up not only for you, but you got to step up for your family, So I know that, like, my older brother, Ramon, he has 3 daughters that I look after. One of them is now a student at Boston University, studying in Europe, studying abroad right now in Europe. My other brother has 2 sons that I also, I'm mindful and just look out for them in whatever space I can. Yeah, it's money, but more importantly, it's time, and it's also giving your space. You know what I'm saying? And I think what I would tell people, yo, you're gonna go through some experiences in life that are gonna kick your ass, and you're gonna be like, fuck, like, am I gonna make it out of this? But you got to tell yourself, like with prayer, you got to tell yourself with a lot of loco, vamos estar bien. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And so I just think that those are things that that you just you're mindful of. And those are things that really, like, they harden you as a person. When you go through a loss like I did very suddenly, man, you're like, yo, you it just changes you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. And I completely agree. First of all, thanks for being vulnerable. Second, of course, sorry for your loss. And I think especially when it's all within like back-to-back sequences, as you said, right? Like, you show up to work and people may not know that, right? Or you show up to events and people may not know the weight that you're carrying, but you're handling and doing so much, right? And I completely understand your family looking at you as the answer for things, right? Like I very much understand, like I lost a sister before. And one of the things through that time was, one, not only financially, you got to figure it out, but also like responsibility wise, everybody's kind of looking at you to like get it right and figure it out. But it's a lot to carry. And I will say, I appreciate you mentioning the importance of therapy. Like, therapy has helped me through the worst of times and through the best of times, and like just get cleared enough to like figure out kind of the next moves and continue. Like, I can't show up professionally the way that I do if I didn't have that. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that is important and something that, folks in our community are just not comfortable with. All of a sudden, I don't know, but tú estás loco. It's like, nah, man.
No, tú estás loco. No. You got to talk to somebody about stuff. And and I'll be honest with you, man, like sometimes through therapy, you start realizing that there were things that happened as a kid, like these traumas that we deal with that we don't talk about. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's an opportunity also to kind of unravel that. Like for me, I'll give you an example, right? Like the reason that I say I know I'm good if my card goes through is because, I was that 11, 12-year-old kid fucking at the Mullahs in Lawrence, Massachusetts, trying to buy groceries. And we didn't have enough money on the card. Loco, so all the groceries se quedaron on the beltway, and I had to leave like an 11, 12-year-old saliendo de allá. ¿Tú me entiendes? And that's always been a memory that for me, I'm just like, coño, like, But I didn't realize that until you go through therapy and you talk about these things, right? And you start realizing that, like, yo, even little things like that have a profound effect on your psyche, on the way you carry yourself, on the way you approach money, or you approach going out or anything like that, you know. And I bring that example up because, like, it's just good to talk to somebody, to talk to, you know, to a therapist, because it's those are things that you can, you know, they're going to help you with your relationships, whether they're romantic or work related, or, you know, with relationships with family members.
Thank you for opening up on that. I really appreciate that. I think I completely agree, and I appreciate you sharing that. I want to give a space for you to talk about some of the work that you do outside of work. I know you do some consulting. So tell the world what kind of consulting you do. How can you be helpful? If I needed some support, what type of reasons would I be looking at Dario for?
Yeah, so I do. No, that's a great question. So let me see. So I do. Obviously, you know, the Hispanic Heritage Foundation is kind of my main work. But then I also work with a couple clients, basically, you know, helping identify opportunities for us. Like right now, working with a client, and basically just being, you know, identifying potential opportunities where we can expand the gentleman's business. So I think for me, it's also an opportunity to create other streams of income. I think that, inflation's crazy. Everything's super expensive. So I would challenge everybody to try to find a hustle, one or two hustles on the side that you could try to, you know, have multiple streams of income. Because God forbid, si te pasa algo en un trabajo, por lo menos you have something else to fall back on, if that makes sense.
That's helpful. I appreciate that. Are there any forms of media that you've consumed that have been helpful to you? That can be anything from books to music to television to podcasts that you think are helpful to you personally or professionally that you think folks should check out.
I would have people, you know, look up different podcasts of obviously interest that you're in. But you know, there's a lot of great podcasts out there. Obviously, a lot of people like Tony Robbins. But there's a lot of like Latino podcasts that are out there that are talking about stories about success, stories about challenges and overcoming challenges and grief and all of that good stuff. So I would make it a point to, you know, try to listen to at least one or two podcasts a week, or even if you like sports, like, you know, be informed. The great thing about going to networking events, Radhy, is I'm not an expert in many things. I know a little about a lot of things, if that makes sense. So if you're in a conversation y están hablando de qué sé yo, algo, tú por lo menos tú te puedes decir, okay, coño, yo me puedo defender. You know what I mean? And I think that's very, very important as it pertains to different events, especially here in Washington, D.C., where, I mean, we have all types of, you know, events that are happening like every week. So I think okay. That's one. Yeah. So I would think that, you know, sometimes for work, for example, there are certain people that you have to meet, like in my business, individuals within certain companies that we're obviously, as Hispanic Heritage Foundation, we're trying to get a sponsorship. Or if I'm working with my client, we're trying to connect on a potential long-term business opportunity. So I think when you know that you're going to meet that particular person, be prepared. Google them. Go on their LinkedIn, check out YouTube, see if they have any videos of interviews or anything that they've done before. So when you go into that, when you go into that opportunity to meet that person, you're going in with ya tú conoces esa persona. And if that person mentions something, like for me, baseball is always like a big topic because I just love it. Then I know, oh, hey, I heard you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. Isn't that where you grew up?
Mm.
Yo, y esa persona va a estar, oh, coño, este chamaquito did his homework. Okay, yeah, man. And then you start a conversation and you're connecting with that person. But again, do your homework, right? If you know that person, like if you know that you're going to meet Jessica Alba, for example, and you know that she's an actress, great. But you got to know that she's an incredible entrepreneur and she's built this $1 billion brand, right? And that has a sustainability aspect to it. You got to know that stuff so that when you get in front of her, coño, like you're on point. Tú puedes hablar de eso. No de que, oh my God, I love when you're an actress for in this movie 20 years ago. No, you gotta, because you get a lot of the times, especially with these very busy people, you get one shot at them and you got to make that count, you know?
Okay.
And so I think that would be kind of like an advice that I tell folks. So when you go in there, ya tú sabes lo que hay, you know? Or if you go to a White House event and you know that so-and-so is going to get awarded, you know, make sure you read their bio. So if at the cocktail hour you run into that person and it's a one-on-one or they're around other people, have that bullet in the chamber ready to go. you know? Because I think that when that happens, people are going to be like, yo, you know what? I really enjoyed that conversation that I had with that young man. Boom, boom, boom. You know what? Hey, I have an event. That's happened to me many times. Hey, I have an event next week. I actually have a suite for so-and-so. Boom, boom, boom. You should come. And then what happens is now you're meeting other like-minded individuals within those circles. And now you're asking yourself, coño, yo estoy aquí. I don't know how I got here, pero estoy aquí. Vamos a mezclar. Vamos a hacer lo que tenemos que hacer. So I think that's a cheat sheet that a lot of people don't really talk about.
Absolutely.
You know?
Is there anything else we haven't discussed that the world should know about Dario?
Man, I like to have a good time. I like to explore. I like to travel. You know, I try to go to one new country a year. That's something after COVID that I've really tried to, that I'm like trying to stay in front of. I've mentioned I've been to 20 out of 30 ballparks. So I'm trying to finish the other 10. That's been a lifelong goal of mine to do that. And it's something that I've like put on the back burner, but then COVID happened. And obviously I lost, like I said, 2 brothers and one of my best friends to an overdose. And you just start realizing, that like, we're not all here. El tiempo se va rápido. So we gotta make sure that if there are things that you want to do in your life, make sure you do it. You know, I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, after my second brother passed away, my mom had lost two of her kids, 2 of her 7 kids. So she was, very fragile state, and she's always wanted to go to Paris. And I told my little brother, I was like, yo, we gotta like, if there's any time, like, let's make this happen. Shout out to, my homies at Delta Airlines for getting us on the Delta One. And, so we were able to make that happen. And we went to Paris for like 4 days. And it was my little brother, myself, and my mom's first time in France. And it was super dope because, my dad, he passed away in 2002 from cancer. So my dad always used to have stories about, que tú sabes que tenemos familia para allá en Francia, pum, pum, pum. So it was like a really dope way for us to kind of go to Paris and go see the Mona Lisa and just, tomarte un cafecito para allá, tranquilo. And then meeting other Latinos out there just mad randomly. So I think for me, that was just like a very sweet experience that I was able to enjoy with my mom and my little brother. And being unapologetic about it. Like, coño, nosotros we have the means and we can do that. Y eso es lo que, si eso es lo que quiere la vieja, vamos para allá. ¿Tú me entiendes? Sometimes we feel guilty about like doing stuff, like good shit, like just good things for us and the family. And I think sometimes, we got to get rid of that shame. We got to get rid of that shame. We got to like, and enjoy life for what it presents itself,
Love that. That's great. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you being so open, so candid, so vulnerable, so insightful with your interview. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And anybody, I'm on Instagram, Dario Collado. Happy to, just continue to follow if I can be a resource to anyone. And then make sure to, follow us. My work email is dario@hispanicheritage.org. Make sure to check out hispanicheritage.org, our website, for any potential opportunities, grants that folks might be interested in and, able to apply.
Love it. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, and keep doing your thing, man. I appreciate you creating this safe space for us to drop some nuggets.
That's the goal, man. We have some remarkable people doing great work like yourself that need to be highlighted and folks should know about.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and believe on the mission we're on, please like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're using, and share this podcast with your friends in your networks. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Cheat Code, and tell us people or careers you would like to see highlighted. See you next week with some more cheat codes. Peace.